Hello, everybody, and welcome to a comprehensive guide on selling your soul from me and this fake corner over here, because it's actually the shadow of a screen rather than a real corner, and it's really messing with my head, honestly. Anyway, I honestly feel like I should learn how to get that green screen down so that I don't need to push it around the room, and this is a lot less awkward if I need to make any more videos on occult topics. I did not expect to be making 2 in a row, so if you have anything else to ask me, just hit it. About demon work, Lucifer, occult, go ahead. I'm covering the craziest topics. This is definitely your chance right now. One thing. How do I start this? I guess I'm gonna start from the fact that selling your soul, the way that Hollywood portrays it, would be a bit like exchanging yourself into infinite slavery with a person that you absolutely have no idea about anything about. And that is very much a bad idea. Very obviously. For very obvious reasons. So, if you want to subscribe to a permanent afterlife, you kind of have to understand that it won't really matter what entity you're directing your wish to. The primary importance should be placed on the fact that the entity for whom you're gonna be subscribing to, presumably for eternity, should be one that agrees with you energetically and goal-wise. Otherwise, it's a pretty unhappy situation. So if you want to make such a permanent commitment, you don't do it by just going, I am gonna sell my soul to the devil and he's gonna drop me a money bag, because that's not gonna be how it works anyway. First step should be actually finding an entity that will connect with you, that you can feel, you could then propose your contract to, and you don't do this on the first meeting. Because once again, you're not subscribing eternity to a stranger. It should be an honest choice. Meaning it also can't be something urgent. In general, if you have something super burning, consider not making permanent declarations, especially considering that absolutely anything that could be super burning for you is temporary regardless. For example, people out of good intentions might be like, oh, heal my family member from cancer and I'm forever yours. And the family member does survive an extra couple of years, and then they die anyway, because nobody's immortal and that's gonna come for all of us. You just delayed their suffering a bit for a religion that you're now gonna be practicing till your death, to then continue on into an afterlife dictated by whoever you contacted on that day, and that being can wildly disagree with you. Yet, now you gave all of your free will and free choice to said being. So if he is dead set on, let's take something ridiculous, because the consequences of this could be a bit more serious than that. If he's dead set on making you a janitor for the rest of your existence, then you're being a janitor in somebody's astral palace, and that's not an existence that you like, that's not something that you enjoy doing, and you definitely cannot reach any of those people that you interacted with in this lifetime that you preserved for an extra couple of years. So what was the point of that? And it's not the kind of arrangement that you can easily get out of. So the first choice, being the choice of entity, is the most important one. Not your wish, not anything that you could get here. Who you connect to. And don't limit yourself. Don't think that, oh, it must be a demon, or it must be Satan, or something like that. A lot of pagan gods honestly do pacts just as well. So read mythology, take religious books, read them, take a list of demon names, read that, see what stands out, meditate on these entities one at a time. Just legitimately sit down into meditation and try and mentally reach for a name that you read. See what answers. And if the entity is legitimate, then they're not gonna request anything impossible of you. That's definitely important. They're not gonna request that you injure yourself. That is also very important. If they have a sigil and you will ask them to send you a mental image of their own sigil, they'll be able to do so. And if you state that only me and this entity, by name, can enter my space, they won't suddenly whoosh away. So first of all, you need to establish a contact, and secondly, you have to establish that the entity that you established a contact with is who they say they are, and not just some random grandma Billy that decided to play a prank on you and end up with an extra soul. I don't know what Grandpa Billy would do with you, but you might just be, I don't know, a couple in the underworld. Now, if you finally can make contact with an entity, and their energy does not disagree with you, which means that you're not getting a sense of dread, you're not afraid, there isn't any kind of bad feels in the air, everything's going smooth, you can make that proposal of going, I am gonna dedicate myself to you for all eternity, and this is what I would like you to help me work towards in exchange. Now, what can you ask for? Anything that's physically possible, and anything that you can still physically achieve. Because otherwise, you're asking for a future you. So, for example, if you want to be an Olympic marathon runner, but you were not training for that, and you were not practicing towards it, it is physically impossible to make you into one. It is possible to make you be born into one your next life. But that's where it stops. You wouldn't necessarily see an instant result here. If you're planning some sort of stardom, this one's complex, because you can't exactly approach any entity and go, give me riches and fame, because there has to be something that you do that generates this rich and famous thing that you want. And that normally includes a mastery of some sort of skill, that normally includes getting the right opportunities going forth, that normally includes working very hard, and chances are for something like that, something that's as complex like that, you will be working with multiple entities. But the original one might be like, okay, I will help you to be a better musician, and we can go from there. And you can work on them for inspiration, you can work on them for opportunity to get the teachers that you need. But it won't be that you go, hey, I am gonna exchange myself to a complete stranger for riches and fame, just so that I can clean their astral palace for all eternity. And I keep on saying that, but honestly, the level of consequence of giving yourself completely away and giving your free will entirely away is such a broad range. Like, you're literally aiming anywhere from getting yourself annulled and eaten to being an eternal slave to being the carrier of their energy on Earth while going back into the cycle eternally to somewhere much higher. You could end up being on their advising table. You could end up being their buddy. You could end up being their lover. But the thing is, with such a declaration, you have just gave somebody else the choice as to what to do with you. And that is the important bit that has to sink in with you. You have to understand that, and you have to take it seriously. You have to choose well whom that is gonna be, and you have to understand that whatever you exchange it for will still be a lot of work and a very long journey. Another thing, when you make that choice, normally the entity that would accept that choice be finding some sort of use for you. And because they would be finding some sort of use for you, they might start bending either your current life or your next one to get you to develop the skills that you're gonna need to have. For example, if I would need an eternal accountant on my side and I decided that I don't have one, I am gonna start turning this person, no matter where they are right now, into really being obsessed with math, really liking calculation, and all of that fun stuff. No matter their own wishes, they're gonna start getting twisted into where they need to be in the future. So once again, why it's so important to choose well, because it has to be aligned with who you are, as otherwise that twist can get very extreme and you will just kind of lose who you are right now and you're gonna have a full-on blown identity crisis. Do I describe my own situation like that? I don't know, actually. I would say that I've done a lot of very extreme work over a fairly short period of time, and I have gotten, like, this close to getting a full-on identity crisis, but every single time when I've gotten this close to having an identity crisis, I would relax my working until I would be fine with who I am again, and then my work on my own personality traits would pick up again until I would be that close to having an identity crisis. So it's kind of waving pattern. And if you need to know, because right now, by this point, you kind of know everything that you need to know. You need to know that you have to select your entity well, that it can't be on the first contact, that you do want to establish contact through meditation first, figure out that their energy aligns with you, talk with them, ask them politely, ask them would they accept an arrangement like that. And here's the thing, when you can sense an entity and you're talking with it, sometimes there's no way for you to interpret that message back. Sometimes you just kind of get a thought and you can process that thought and then you can figure out what the heck's happening on the other side of that conversation, but you can't. So sometimes that conversation's gonna be like really, really slow and you're just gonna establish contact and meditate and go, I would like to work with you. Do you think we would be good at working with you? Please give me a sign if that's the case. And then you're gonna wait a week and you're gonna get like a random ass dream that's very positive from the entity and you're gonna be like, well, that's obviously a yes. So then you're gonna go further and go, hey, I would like this for in exchange of me subscribing to you and you only specifically for the rest of eternity, and like we can go through that path together, and I make a very permanent, established choice. What do you think? Can you give me a sign? And then you might get a dream that goes, well, actually, so. And you might then need to renegotiate a bit, and renegotiate a bit, and renegotiate a bit until you get into that agreement of everything's cheeky and you're both fine. Because once again, you're making a very, very specific agreement. That is a lot of permanence. It requires a lot of permanence from you. You're making a very deep life choice, and it is not something that you're gonna be able to just resent. It's not even gonna be something that a different entity can help you resent. And sometimes with these people, when they figure out that they made a mistake and they switch religion, they still have to dedicate X amount of lifetimes to something that no longer aligns with them. So it's a very big decision, is what I'm saying, if you're gonna make that decision. But now that you know how big that decision is and how to reach it, and then you know that you can't ask for impossible things. No, you can't be a vampire, you can't fly, you can't phase through walls, you can't throw fireballs, you can't fart butterflies. Anything that you can actually reach for in this lifetime, you will get openings and opportunities, but you will need to focus so deeply on that improvement. And on top of that, you will have the added complication of there will be something else waiting for you, some sort of role that you will fill. And by the time that you will arrive at that role, you will actually fill it quite naturally, organically, and it will just seem like the kind of thing that you would have always chosen for yourself. But between point A, which is you now, and point B, which is whatever that role is, there's so many twists and turns that will have to like reform you as a person, and how much of reforming you need to do as a person will vary so wildly depending on what role you need to fill and for whom. So you're adding a complication to your life. On one side, you're opening a pathway towards whatever it is that you currently desire, and things will go smoothly. But on the other side, you have now redirected your whole river of being into having to reach this point B at some point. Time's really not of the essence, honestly. You can take your time, you can take lifetimes, but that's now your end point. And you're gonna get to that end point. And everything on your life path is now focused on making you into the person that you need to be to reach that endpoint. That's kinda the complexity of this whole situation. This has been an in-depth guide on how to sell your soul, or in other words, let me rip the Hollywood band-aid off and throw it out in the trash. How to swear yourself eternally to another being. Because that's what you're doing. Effectively, that is what you're doing. You are overriding your own ability to choose. So choose wisely and choose carefully. And yes, it is something that you definitely can do. But don't expect it to not come with its own complications and its own spiritual journey and its own amount of work. It's not just like somebody snaps the fingers, you get what you want, and they leave you alone, and then you burn in hell for forever. Honestly, that concept's really silly, because who could use you burning in hell for forever? What would you be used for? Entertainment? Do you think it's that entertaining to see somebody screeching for 1,000 years straight? That would just be kind of annoying. That wouldn't serve a purpose. So that's not how it works. I hope that this has been helpful to people that have been thinking of doing that. I know that I have wobbled on quite a bit, But this is, I would say, personal experience. And this is something that you should definitely know. And I know that a lot of people, they want to go that route and they don't know how. And they will come out and they will repeatedly ask that question. And every single occult forum get laughed at because of how often that question comes up. Be told that it's not something that you can do because technically it is and it isn't. It isn't in the fact that it's not just a solely capitalistic transaction. It is a path of work, and you have to understand that all you're doing is you're diverging your path towards that new being, and you're giving your freedom to choose to them. Because you trust them that much. But on the other hand, to make this a tiny bit less scary, consider that this is effectively what Christians do and what other big religions really do, because they state that if you follow this very, very specific booklet of things that you have to do for this entity that you don't personally know, you will go into this very specific place that is under their command. And nobody really explains what would you be doing in that place. They just kind of assume that it's gonna be a nice place, but technically the entity that you serve will have to make choices as to where you fit in, and you will need to fit that position nicely. So it's not necessarily more scary than what people do when they subscribe to a religion and faith in its entirety and they accept it into their heart. But still, it's taking quite a bit of that control that you have and just handing it to somebody. So you have to know that somebody, you have to know that that somebody aligns with you. And you have to be able to trust that somebody. You can't do it with a stranger. Well, you can, but it's not gonna end well. It's not gonna end nicely. For one thing, you don't know that stranger doesn't know you. Doesn't mean that it likes you. It probably doesn't give a shit about you. It just needs position X, Y, or Z filled, and the level of shittiness that X, Y, and Z can be is infinite. There's a lot of... If you can think it, it can probably be it. So, be careful out there, and definitely make sure that you're not subscribing to somebody's grandpa named Billy that decided to introduce themselves as Zeus because they were bored for the last 100 years and thought that playing a prank might actually be kind of fun. So now they have your soul. So when you die, there's just gonna be Grandpa Billy. And you're gonna be like, well, Billy pranks up, what now? And he will be like, I don't know, bro. I have been hanging about this living room for the past 100 years and it has been monumentally boring. Do you want to go and prank somebody else? In other words, defend against possible parasites, but remember that that's kind of what they are. They were people at some point. And now they're just restless dead. And not necessarily very human looking, because you don't necessarily need to keep the shape when you're dead. Oh, and another thing. And you're connecting with an entity, small note. Don't really expect to see them. Don't really expect to hear them. They're not a physical being. They're not gonna be physically here. You'll have to put in a lot of work in trying to enter a state of entire, complete calmness where you can reach into the cosmos and get at least something to reach back at you and go, I can feel a presence here, and to be able to then talk at that presence, and for that presence to then successfully be able to give you signs back. So once again, those reasons, plentiful for not just like doing it on first contact, and for knowing that you need to invest that work and to work towards it. Anyway, I have been ranting and babbling on here for a while. I hope that this is useful to somebody. Thank you for watching, and if you have any other questions, please ask down below, and toodaloo for now.